Well, hi, I'm Aisha Hauser. Welcome to another episode of the VUU, the Church of the Larger Fellowship's YouTube/podcast show where we center liberation, Unitarian Universalism, and sometimes fun. Today, we are very excited to have three guests who have been leading the Beloved Conversations program out of Meadville Lombard. So before we hear from Reverend Kirsten Humblet Allen, Jacaren Ola Oya, and Tyra Zinde Perez, I'm going to throw it to the coach. Did I say who I am and where I am? I'm Aisha Hauser in Seattle, Washington. And we had somewhat of a blizzard. I mean, we did have 8 inches on Saturday. I don't even own a shovel. And by Monday morning, it was gone. I just needed to wait. So now we have maybe I don't know, a hint every, block or two that maybe we had a little bit of snow. It's very funny here in Seattle. It's a whole very funny thing. So that's me, QuianaDenae.
Good morning. Good morning. I guess it's afternoon. I am very excited to be here today because I get to be with folks who I love and I'm going to get to love. We're going to all get there together. I am hailing in from lovely Ann Arbor, Michigan. We had snow and I got to tell you, I have this little girl. She's maybe 5th or 6th grade. I actually don't know because I'm really lazy and she was willing to shovel. So I pay her and she shovels and she comes by yesterday, y'all. She was so cute. The shoveling was perfect. She goes, "Can I shovel out your car?" And she's trying to hustle for whatever she's hustling for. I just want to give her the money because she's hustling so hard. But then that takes away, I didn't want to undermine her process or anything. So we do have snow on the ground. I've been looking at animal tracks a lot right now. Even human tracks, I keep looking at them thinking, where did that person go? Where were they coming from? Where are they going? Did their dog get to go to the bathroom? Like all of these kind of things about snow. But I did go outside today. The temp's not too bad for a Minnesota girl. So for me, it felt kind of springy, kind of balmy. And then the last thing I want to share before I throw it to my other co-host, Michael, is I just want to show this off a little bit. This is where I work. And this is my our holiday, our pandemic edition. And it says, first UU Ann Arbor, you're on mute, you're muted, which has become our phrase for the year. And I just wanted to share the joy that is the place that I get to work and the love I get to wrap myself in the form of a hoodie. So with that, I turn the floor over to my friend, Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, QuianaDenae. And I get to wrap myself in the Church of the Larger Fellowship with my CLF lead ministry team apron, but I don't wear that for the VUU or even for the VUU. Greetings, everyone. It is a beautiful snowy day here in Peekskill, New York, in the Hudson Valley, north of New York City. And it is snowing. It is seriously snowing right now. The window is right here. I'm looking out on the snow. It is so pretty because I don't have to go anywhere. And I have a 7-year-old who enjoys shoveling out the cars. And our driveway is exactly the length of our 2 cars. So they pretty much keep it clear. So we have to shovel our 8 feet of sidewalk in front of the house, and it shouldn't be that big a deal. But there's been snow on the ground here for a while, and it's okay because nobody's going anywhere. It is not making travel hazardous because there's no travel going on. Otherwise, life is okay. We want to say hi to Tanner Linden, who is behind the chalice today and who will be staying behind the chalice, but who will be relaying all of your comments from YouTube to our panelists and guests today. So please, Darby Lockridge is saying hi from Texas. Darby, I'm so glad you have power back. I hope it stays on. We are sending so much love to our beloveds in the South Central region, especially in Texas, where years of deregulation and collusion with the fossil fuel industry has meant that your power grid is not able to handle this cold snap. But throughout the South Central U.S., the temperatures are way below normal thanks to the polar vortex that has been unleashed by climate change. And our hearts and prayers. I wish I could send heat and running water and insulation and electricity to all of my beloved who are struggling without it right now.
What we can
Aisha?
do is Leslie Mack on her Facebook page, and Tanner will be sharing the link, posted a really compassionate video asking folks, especially folks on the left, that to stop making fun of Texas, right? And Texas is not as red as anyone thinks, and people are suffering, and Black and brown people are suffering. So it is absolutely not helpful. None of this, I mean, you can make fun of Ted Cruz, who got on a plane and went to Cancun, have at it. You can, people who are being cruel and irresponsible, especially when they have the power to do otherwise, have at it. But poking fun at the entire state right now is cruel. And to tangibly help, also on that post in the comments are a list of mutual aid, direct giving organizations. I think no amount is too small. If you're able to donate to help those on the ground in Texas, please do. Please do.
Can I ask, before we introduce our panelists and beloved conversations, I have a CLF question. I assume that prisons are also on the Texas power grid. How is that situation inside of cages? I don't know how to reach out and help those folks, but my heart goes out to the folks who were already marginalized and now are even further marginalized. Is there anything we can do around abolition or around that particular cage space at this time?
That's a great question. I wish I knew, and I apologize that I don't know. We need to find that out. I don't know what's happening at all. I mean, I will say, not having to do with the storm, but COVID is out of control in incarcerated spaces, and that's not talked about enough either. So I imagine that that's also a crisis. So we will follow up with that. Thank you, QuianaDenae. Before we also get to beloved conversations, I want to lift up QuianaDenae. Would you like to talk about UU Lent?
Yes. So for those of you who don't know me personally, which I'm sorry, we can get there. Well, we got time. I really love taking photos. So UU Lent for me, and I love a daily habit. Like I love a good practice ritual. So for a while I was walking and doing Girl Trek, which is my jam. No, March 1st, no sleep. If you want to get back into Girl Trek or you've never been in Girl Trek, you got me on a sidebar, Aisha. So Girl Trek is going to do a 21-day series on women's history. It's a walk and talk, 20 to 50 minutes. You put it in, you listen, and you learn, and you grow, and it's amazing. Boom. So that's on pause for the moment, but UU Lent came up. And for me, it was like 21 days or 30, 40 days. I forgot about what Lent is. Sorry, Catholic school, for those 4 years I paid for. Sorry about that, St. Mary's University. Is 40 days to take pictures and to be present. And the way that I try to practice, and if you're following hashtags, it's UU Lent 2021. And one of the things that I try to do is actually before I get out of bed is to look at what the word is for the day. And then as I move through my day, try to find that thing. So it doesn't just become a moment. It doesn't just become a picture. It becomes an analysis of my whole world, of my whole space and how I'm moving through it. And so like today's word, for example, is earth. And I had a moment where I did see earth today, y'all. I was at the doctor's office and all these little birds were kind of between the snow and the bushes, the kind of like warblers that are brown and really kind of fade in, but they were like chatting and talking. And before I could capture that image, it was gone. But there was something about the earth and being grounded and finding your place in that for me, that was really beautiful. So even though I didn't snap a picture, I had this moment where I got to be present with what I feel like is earth. So if you want to do UU Lent, if you want to follow it, there's beautiful ways to do it and move in it, through it, and around it. UU Lent 2021. And I think we wanted to just throw in a couple other UU happenings before we got to the meat. What were the other things? Was there one more?
Nope.
Oh, sweet.
We can go right to the meat. So let us, I'm going to ask our amazing guests to introduce themselves. So whoever wants to start, please go. You know what? Let's start with Kirsten. I believe you're the director of Beloved Conversation. I'm just making stuff up. So why don't I just hand it over to you?
Hello.
She's acting like QuianaDenae. That's what she's doing. She's making things up.
Hey, y'all. I'm Kirsten, Reverend Kirsten Humblett Allen. I'm here with my coworker Esme, and I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm the program director for Beloved Conversations, and I'm also a UU community minister affiliated with the First Unitarian Church of Orlando, which is also my home congregation where I grew up, which is lovely and a little bit complicated. And I have had the honor to work with the Beloved Conversations program and amazing community involved with it for almost 4 years now. And as you'll hear us chatting about in a little bit, we've made a huge transition in what that program is, and I've made a big transition in my role. So I'm really excited to get a chance to be here with some of my colleagues and friends from that program to chat with you all. I'll also say that I am loving this season in Florida. I know that weather is very challenging at this moment in a lot of parts of our country, and my heart goes out to those folks. And also really happy that this is our beautiful season. So in a couple of months, y'all you can feel for me when it's 100 at the end of March. But right now, enjoying some sunshine, chance to be out with my family biking, and
hopefully
wonderful
some fresh citrus fruit.
Yes, that's right. Oranges galore. So thanks for having me on.
Ty, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Ty Resendez de Perez, and I serve as the Director of Children's Ministry at UUC Phoenix in Arizona, and I'm on the curriculum design team for Beloved Conversations. And I do a few other projects here and there in UU land. I really, really focus my professional work and a lot of my spirituality on identity and faith, and how those two serve each other and how we can use them to build really deep multi-gen communities. I'm all about making sure that the youngest member of our communities and the oldest member of our communities are able to contribute in equal ways, and that we make spaces where faith exploration is truly accessible and exciting. And I don't know, that kind of idea that everyone deserves a space for their spirit and a right to their soul, and working on those things. Right now, I'm in northern New Mexico waiting for y'all to figure out herd immunity on my wife's reservation, the Picarius Pueblo. And I love Arizona. I love 117-degree days, and it is 17 today. So I'm a little cold, and we're going to get through this season together, right? Hopefully. Jakaran, how are you doing?
Hello. It is a cold day here too. So my name is Jakaran Olaoya. I am currently in Gaithersburg, Maryland, where we are currently in an ice storm. We were actually expecting snow, but we got ice instead, so that's fun. Currently, I serve as a congregational administrator for UU Rockville here in Maryland, and with Beloved Conversations, I serve as a communications coordinator part-time. So I also am a seminarian at Stark King School for the Ministry. So I'm doing lots of things. You have seen me everywhere. But I am so glad to be here with so many people that I absolutely love and adore.
I mean, this is just a love fest here today. I also want to give a shout out to Ty. Do you have your own YouTube channel, or are your stories on the Phoenix UU channel? Because Ty has done some amazing stories that I recommend for congregations, families that are beautiful, spiritual, fun. So I want to just give a shout out, Ty, because I've enjoyed what you've been posting since the pandemic. I mean, we've all been having church virtually, which has been amazing. So I want to name that, let's see. So now 8 years ago, is it 8 years ago that Beloved Conversations started? Because I was part of one of the very first iterations in East Shore Unitarian Church when I was still director of lifelong learning there. And well, it was good. And as a person who identifies as a person of color, it was challenging. And so my understanding, and I don't know who, any of the three of you are invited to go first, maybe Kirsten, you want to, but my understanding is it has changed significantly. So maybe speak to folks about, especially people who've already taken Beloved Conversations or maybe didn't have a great experience. What can people expect?
Yo, can we slow down for a minute though for the kids in the back of the room who just came late? What is beloved conversation?
Thank you, QuianaDenae.
Yeah, great. Thank you. What is Beloved Conversations? So Beloved Conversations is a program for people who are looking to practice racial justice as a spiritual practice. And it is a program out of our Unitarian Universalist Seminary, Meadville Lombard, which is in Chicago. But really, where is anything these days, right? Beloved Conversations is everywhere. So we have been, like Aisha said, running this program in various iterations now for almost a decade. And it has, it began at our congregation in Portland, Oregon, as a program for that congregation specifically, for people to build skills around having conversations about race, as well as handling racism in their congregation. And also as a small group ministry program to build stronger relationships amongst the congregants there. And since that time, our traditional in-person program has been done in more than 200 congregations. I'm happy to say across the continent. Pre-pandemic, in the fall of 2019, we had our pilot in Canada. So it's very exciting. We've welcomed a whole bunch of Canadians into the new iteration of our program, which is, there's so many advantages to the virtual format, and that's certainly one of them. And so in our traditional program, congregations would join. We would send someone out from our team to lead a 1.5-day long retreat in the congregation. And then the congregation would run a small group ministry program of 8 2-hour sessions facilitated by members of the congregation. That was sort of a mix of individual personal work with a goal towards systemic change in the congregation in terms of eradicating white supremacy culture. And that curriculum went through several different versions over the years. And then last spring, in the spring of 2020, when the pandemic arrived here, we asked our congregations that were running the program to stop. And that was a hard call. There was so much uncertainty in that time, but we felt like we didn't want people to have to deal with varying levels of discomfort with being in person, and to not have their commitment to the learning questioned by their inability to show up to be in an in-person program. We also felt uncomfortable with congregations adapting the program themselves to be in a virtual format. We just know that that can go off the rails really fast and cause a lot of harm. And so at that time, we asked them to stop, and then we had to ask ourselves some questions about how we wanted to move forward. And we played with adapting the traditional program to a virtual format ourselves. But there were several things that we had been wanting to work on for a long time and knew were problems with our traditional program that we felt like we could address with a complete rewrite of the program. And so Aisha, one of the things that you're naming about the program being a very complicated and fraught experience for participants of color was right at the top of that list. Like many anti-racism curricula, the needs of white learners were at the center of our old program. And in some ways, that's because that is the majority of our learners, but in most of the ways, that's because white supremacy culture functions to prioritize the needs of white people. So that was really high on our list. Another thing on our list to address was the fact that if people were interested in this learning, but they were in a congregation that couldn't afford the program, wasn't interested in anti-racism work, or were not a member of a congregation, then they had no access to the program. We also were not serving people who couldn't commit to a whole weekend retreat in person in a congregation, and then 8 2-hour sessions at a certain time for other people's schedules. So we were missing out on folks who can't drive or don't have transportation. We're missing out on a lot of young parents who can't commit to that kind of schedule or get that much childcare. We wanted the program to be accessible to people who were unable to access our traditional program. And then finally, we knew that being able to have a critical mass of people of color learning together was only going to be possible virtually, because so many people of color in our congregations are there with a handful of other people of color, and don't necessarily have an opportunity to meet other people of color who are in other congregations. So there's the wonderful Finding Our Way Home program for religious professionals, but for lay people, especially lay people who can't afford to go to GA, it really isn't a chance to be with other UUs of color.
Reverend, I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you for the entire program and all of the program staff for having that realization and that moment to step back and think about the levels of accessibility. I think oftentimes we're like, oh, is there a ramp? Is there, we don't think about accessibility in terms of time, in terms of economics, and how time is different when you have kids, how time is different when you don't have transportation. And so I just really want to lean into thanking you all for reconstructing it in a way that recenters the folks who we're hoping to center, right? Like having a centering. So I want to thank you for that. I wanted to just lean in a little bit about the new program construction, and maybe ask Ty a little bit about what it means to construct a program. I think a lot of us just show up to stuff and we don't realize how much construction goes into that experience in the back of the house. Ty, can you talk a little bit about being on that team and what it means to construct for an entire denomination, which is like, wowzer.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. That's the short of it. But so often, curriculum design or any kind of workshop design or thing, we're doing based on something that came before. I went to this workshop and I really liked the format and I want to do it, but about this topic, or I know lots about this topic and I'm going to figure out how to portray that. And with this process, it's been totally different because we knew what the work we wanted to do was and what we wanted to be moving towards, but we didn't necessarily know what the points were of, you should learn A, B, C, and D. The learning objectives were a beautiful cloud, and the how we were going to do it was, hey, Zoom. But we had to figure out all these different tools, and pandemic really pushed us into a different set of materials and a bravery. It really gave us a bravery. And so I work on the curriculum design team, mostly on the Gathering Ourselves side, which is a caucus specifically for BIPOC practitioners and BIPOC participants. And on that side, it has been amazing to continually remind ourselves that we are not gathering together in spite of our white community members. We are gathering there to edify ourselves, and we are gathering there to educate ourselves, but more than anything, to dive into the tools that we already have and figure out how to use them to create the liberated space that we're looking for. So curriculum design meetings are anywhere from 3 to 5 people sitting together in a Zoom room, talking to each other about things like, this is my favorite, identity, and being like, well, what about the land that you're on and how you exist on it and how it exists for you? What does that have to do with spirituality? And what does it have to do for how you show up in your racial identity in the world? And being able to have these deep conversations where we open up those pieces and then figure out how to help our community members and our fellow UUs do the same thing. How do we create a space to explore those pieces, to pull out a lot of the tools we already have, or the tools the person in the room with you has that you can figure out how to use? So I keep thinking of this curriculum design process as like going into your granddad's tool shed. And yeah, maybe there's a few pot plants there, but there's also some really cool, well-oiled tools that they took really good care of. And we're going to find it all and figure out which ones we need for tomorrow or for today. And it's a fantastic process.
I've always wondered this, and this is a Quiana sidebar, but it's an important question. How do you decide how long something is, if it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks? And then how does duration of programming factor into what you offer? Is there a way to get this in a one shot? Is there a way to do it in a whole year? Is there, you know what I mean? How do you decide how much content goes where and how can folks tap into it, right?
Yeah, so this is a tension that we carry, right? Is partially because of white supremacy culture. We want to show up and go to a workshop and do activity A, activity B, activity C, be handed a certificate and be like, great, I ended white supremacy. That doesn't work. At the same time, we know that as individuals writing curriculum, as an institution providing workshops, we can't say this is endless and you will be here for 6 hours a day for the rest of your life. So that in-between place, honestly, is that Beloved Conversations isn't a course. It's not a class. It's not pass fail, right? You cannot fail entering into the work of dismantling white supremacy. You enter the work, you work on it. And it's a lifelong practice. So it's an invitation to deepen that work and to stick with it, and sticking with it with Beloved Conversations and moving through that program, or doing one term worth of the course and then coming back to it and coming back to those materials. I really want people to think about how much this work and addressing issues of race ties to our spirituality as UUs, and really truly ties to our faith. So yes, you're going to keep working on it again and again and again. But when we look at how long an individual class takes, what a workshop looks like, or for us, a meaning making session or lessons, honestly, that's for me where the accessibility comes in. Because if you sign up and you can only make it to the meaning making sessions, our time to worship together and do group work, then you've still entered into the work and you've still gotten deep content that you can go back to. If all you can do is make it to your pod meetings, and these are individual groups of 4 to 6 people, if that's all you do and once or twice a month you make it to those meetings, you've still entered into that work. And if you do every single piece of the lesson and you attend every single thing and you feel like I want more, there's still more to do. So it's that accessibility of how much time do you have, and what's the capacity of your heart? Because a lot of these questions are things that you could spend days and days working on, and they might break your heart in the process. And that if that's all you can do is break your heart and come back into community and find people to help you heal it, holy heck, you've done so much work. And so it's really, the one-shot thing doesn't work. It's how do you sit with it? How do you hold it? And you don't get to say, I was anti-racist yesterday, I got my certificate, I don't need to be anti-racist today.
Woo!
That's even
that was
like
a word.
dismantling of how white people want to do it. Like that's even how many, okay, raise your hand if you've ever heard, I'm not even going to just say white UU, any white person say I marched in the 60s. Like that's just, I'm like, okay, so what and it is, we're in the 2000s. Okay. That's just one of my pet peeves. Jacaren, come on in.
Yes.
When did you join, and how are you, where's the,
I got you. So I actually just joined a month ago. So I've been on the team for a whole month. I can't believe it. And my role in Beloved Conversations is really answering those first line questions, people who are interested in the program, who need to know where things are. So it's a lot of logistics, like what are the dates of the program? When does it start? How do I register? I need a scholarship. Those things all come to me, and I do my best to give people information about the program and whatever their needs might be as they enter and navigate this new online format. Maybe towards the end, I'll give you a little more information about what some of those logistical pieces are and where you can find information. But the biggest thing is just that the questions that I get over and over, like, how is this program different? And like, if I'm committing to this one semester, does that mean that I'm committing to a whole year? And what does that look like? And what does that mean? And so those questions we answer over and over again, like Ty said, like, this is a lifelong process. So you start this commitment, this is for life. And that might sound scary for some people to have that kind of commitment, but the really great thing is that our initial program within is divided into 2 sections, one in the fall and one in the spring. So you can start at any point, and you can take both sections that complete the whole year session for within. So if you didn't take the fall session, that is a-okay. Like, jump in now. Registration ends on February 26th. So there's still plenty of time to get plugged in.
And I want to remind people, go ahead. Sorry, a lot of the questions that JaKaren gets, the anxieties about how do I register? Will I do it on time? How am I going to pay? How long do I have to commit? All of those anxieties are hallmarks of white supremacy culture, right? Like, how am I going to get there and show up with all the boxes checked? And yeah, you may not have the funding to figure out how to get yourself there. Come talk to us and have a conversation, because that's not the most important part of you showing up. You know, and even the registering on time. Like, yes, we want you to register on time. JaKaren can show you the dates. Don't let the logistics be your freakouts, because that's not where the work is.
When we were looking for someone to fill JaKaren's position, we knew that we were in a bit of a search for a unicorn, who we found. But we knew that it had to be someone who could handle all of this organization and administration and logistics, and also provide sometimes really intense pastoral care to people who are coming at us with all of these logistical needs, but really it's a manifestation of their anxiety about doing this work, or their questions about their own identity. And so JaKaren has to be sort of doing all the things, which she, as we all know, is amazing at doing, to cover that entire spectrum of things. And this program, you know, we've done a complete 180 since last spring, and we've also really expanded the number of people that we're serving. And so, you know, there was a lot of scrambling and building the plane while it's flying and all of that going on in the background. But since she's come in, I see it, Bob, I see it. Since she's come in, it's like, I was thinking about doing this thing and I just didn't have the time, and JaKaren's already done it. You know, it's just like, oh, could you just think about, maybe in the future we could think about this thing? And she's like, I've already set up the spreadsheet. You know, so it's just like, amazing, so amazing.
Can we dig a little bit into, does somebody else have a question? Sometimes I can't see everybody on my Brady Bunch screen. I want to dig into what, if I'm a Black person. I'm not I own that. What can Black PIOC folks expect in that space? What can they expect to extract from the Beloved Conversations experience? What would you like them to extract? Expect is a heavy word in a growing space, right? I'm sorry, that was intense. And we haven't laughed yet, y'all, and we gotta laugh, because just know, like, between 11:50 and 12 o'clock, we were all smiles and giggles, and then we all got serious. And the truth is, we are all these beautiful people who are only serious some of the time. And so, can we laugh first? And then secondly, what can POC people expect out of these Beloved Conversations?
Yes, absolutely, we can laugh, although I'm very good at serious face, so give me some credit for serious face, right?
I am proud of us. That's 20 minutes, y'all. That's 30 minutes. Woo, let's drop that mask.
You asked what you can expect. And again, that you're right, that expectation is too much and too heavy. Honestly, there is an expectation of, like, taking care of your heart and taking care of yourself in the process. And that doesn't mean, I'm pretty anti the phrase self-care. It means showing up when you can show up and making sure that you're asking the questions you need to. There is a level of accountability for the program that's needed. As far as what to extract and what we expect, especially in the Gathering Ourselves curriculum. So I'll start by saying that for the first section of the program, we're divided in caucuses. One is BIPOC and one is for white folks. Gathering Ourselves is the side that I work on, BIPOC folks. And within that program, really the first term of it, the first semester, is an exploration of identity and of self and connecting back to the things that you've been taught about yourself. So we did a pretty amazing exploration of the concept of home and where home is, where have you lived, who have you lived with, what did it look like, and what does that mean for the home you make now? And what does that mean for the home that you show other people, or the ways that you talk about your home? And even just in starting those conversations, for me, the other thing is the curriculum team is doing the entire program with the participants. So I'm doing these activities and your brain is going, oh, wait, and right now I live on a native reservation and I'm Mexican by heritage. What does it mean for me to be living on this land as a colonizer and also as someone who's been oppressed in lands 2 miles from here? And diving into those things. But then on top of it, having what we call our pods, a group to go back to and have that conversation with people and hear other people, which I know for a lot of UUs of color, they may be only 1 or 2 or 3 in their entire congregation. Having other UUs of color to be able to talk about, yeah, I'm Mexican as all get out, and I'm UU. What does it mean that I'm not, the Catholic girl I was raised to be, or whatever it might be? So there's a lot of identity work, and then there's a lot of unlearning, a lot of working towards our own liberation and figuring out what are the things we do have to free ourselves from, and what have we just accepted, and how can we let go of those? And the work of letting go of some of those oppressive pieces is so hard and so much. And honestly, it's going back to that work a month later, a year later, and going back to it again and again. I do kind of want to give an overview of what is it like and what does curriculum look like and what does the program look like? But maybe I want to turn it over to Kirsten to talk a little bit about the other side first, mostly so I can organize my brain to be able to tell you about our side and throw her under the bus for a second. Or there must be a peaceful way to say throw her under the bus.
Share the mic is good. I like share the mic. But I also, in your intro, Reverend, you said something about your role has changed in the program. So I don't want to forget that because I don't know what it was and what it's changed to. So I want to give you space to talk about that as well while Ty pulls himself together.
Sure. Well, I'll just quickly say that we used to be a much smaller program. We were sort of chugging along in this little corner at Meadville Lombard, really nobody paid too much attention to us. And things have changed a lot in the time since we've gone virtual. And so I was a congregational coordinator previous to this and helping members of our team go out to congregations to lead this retreat and then handling the coaching for congregations as they went through the program. And I was the only staff person other than the FOS Collaborative Director, Dr. Mark Hicks, who is amazing and is the muse for and the originator of Beloved Conversations. And now I'm the program director, but we work really hard within this program to imagine a roundtable model. And so we come together as a team. I'm also a member of the design team to work on creating the program. And so I sort of help keep the pieces moving and remind people of the tasks and coordinate the contracts and all of that. But I'm also really honored to be a member of the design team for Unlearning and Learning for Liberation, which is our course for white folks. And we're really excited to welcome more than 1,000 white people into that course this past fall, and also kind of overwhelmed by that. Because as you can imagine, there were a lot of anxiety and a lot of acting out from white people who are just getting into their learning or continuing their learning around race and racism and white supremacy culture. So the focus of the learning for white people uses the work of Tema Oken and Kenneth Jones, who created an amazing document that maybe Tanner can link to about white supremacy culture characteristics. And they lay out ways that white supremacy culture shows up in organizations and systems and people. And we took the antidotes to those characteristics and focused our learning on those. So instead of saying, here's what we're doing wrong, here's what we need to dismantle, we're trying to say, here are some skills we need to learn, here are some things that we want to build, here is our vision for liberation and mutual interest for white people. And so we are working on things like flexibility and openness to change and willingness to learn. We're working on things like followership and shared power. We're working on digging in a little bit to understanding our ancestors and what it means to be white on this land in Canada and the US. And I will say that it's been really important work for us as white people on the design team too, to figure out where white supremacy culture is showing up in our own participation on the design team, as well as the ways that we are interacting with our participants. So like Ty was saying about participating in the program ourselves, I would say there's so much learning going on for myself and the other white members of the design team as we work on unrooting ourselves from white supremacy culture, even as we're building a program encouraging other people to do the same thing. So I think that that's been one of the things we've tried to emphasize the most with our white folks is the unending and lifelong nature of this work. We are trying to meet learning needs of people in a wide variety of understanding and experience, with their own racial identity formation, with their spiritual formation, with their exposure to racial justice work, and just trying to keep repeating with folks, like we are stepping into a stream that has been flowing since before we were here and will flow on after we are. And there's no boxes to check. There's no grade to get. There's no way that you are ever going to finish this. And aren't we so grateful that we can be in a community of other people who are dedicated to this work, to this personal work, and then eventually to the systemic work in our congregations.
Thank you so much. I think that framing that you all are using is so beautiful and so, I'm going to say this and folks can take it however they need to. There isn't an escape hatch for white people who are uncomfortable. There's no escape route. There's no back door. This is you come in, you sit down, and you have to be willing to be transformed by the work. And that I'm quoting Mary Hooks for that. You have to be ready. And it sounds like you're trying to get folks ready and you're not giving them a way out. And that for me is so important. I feel like sometimes as we battle, white supremacy in faith spaces, that we are very often telling people like you're in the middle of the maze. You are in the middle of the maze inside of a labyrinth. And you just want to know how you can jump over everything and get out. And I hear you all saying, I can leave you some breadcrumbs. The path is yours, but these breadcrumbs are yours, and how you take them out of here is on you. If you want to leap over this hedge, you can do that, but you won't have the same result as if you walk through this hedge and take your time. And I appreciate and value that. Wanted to turn it back over. One, I haven't heard my friend Michael, and I like to include everybody. Ty was going to follow up, and I also haven't heard from my bestie, Karen, in a minute either. So I just want to make sure everybody gets heard. I love that. So Ty, tag Michael, anybody, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to say I'm good here. My internet has been going in and out, so I'm trying to follow the conversation and not be frozen in the middle of a question. But if I had a question more important than my internet freezing, I would jump in and ask it. So Ty, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Michael. So thinking about the UU of color side and kind of what is the curriculum and what you can expect. Okay. I swear I thought about it and pulled it together in my head, but now I have this hedge metaphor and I'm like, yes, if you leap over the hedge, you're going to end up in someone else's maze and all the folks you started with ain't going to be there. Like there's a whole thing around that metaphor. Thanks, QuianaDenae. With the curriculum, when you register, you're given a login for Teachable. And on Teachable, twice a month, we post lessons. And lessons are anywhere from like 6 to 9 sections. And it's things like personal reflection, creative activity. Last term, we created I kept on thinking of it as my altar box, and like one side depicted one aspect of me, another side just depicted an aspect of my ancestors, and sort of this creative work, music and poetry for celebrations and for reflections, resources and readings, and then also prompts for that pod group, so that group work, and this amazing tool, which was guidance for oh my gosh, I can't remember it. What do we call our friend? Unmute, Kirsten.
Our critical friend.
Our critical friend. So having someone that you can turn to talk about the hardest parts of this and have a conversation of just one-on-one with like, hey, where have you seen me speak life to my racial identity, and where have you seen me sublimate it? And having a one-on-one conversation with someone that's guided and like, hey, I'm in this course that asks me to do this and gives you some pressure to do it. Writing exercises, community reflection stuff, looking at what's around you. Those are kind of what makes up the pieces of the lesson. And then once a month, we gather in meaning making sessions, which is like a worshipful space of reflection, really focusing on the spiritual aspects of all of that. But the secret is, and I know UUs don't like to hear this, it's all spirituality. Everything in this is inextricably tied to our faith and how you find yourself in the world. And so all of the different ways you access it, we're tying back into your soul and your heart. Yeah, so that's what the program looks like. It's pretty awesome. And I think you said to pass it on to Jacaren, or there's Kirsten.
I was making it up, so if you think that's good,
I was just going to say that one of the things that is so important about what Ty is saying is that we get a lot of pushback, particularly from white people, about when are we going to get to the real work. So like all of this like mushy gushy, like figuring out my own identity and figuring out how to, not speak over people, or it doesn't feel like real work to some white people. They're like, if I'm not out there with my picket sign, doing the march, like this isn't the thing. And I think that we've been working really hard to reframe that, particularly for white people, to say, this is the work. Like this is it. Like these are the practices. This is what we're trying to root in so deeply that when we get to that march, we aren't jerks to other people who we're partners with, because we don't know how to follow them, and we don't know how to not talk over them, and we don't know how to suggest how they could do it better. So just asking people to slow down, deepen, and reflect is that encouragement is challenging and important, I think.
Can someone, Ty or Kirsten or Jacaren, speak to the within, among, beyond construct too? Because as I understand it, and maybe I'm completely wrong, the first year is supposed to be where we're exploring within ourselves. So we're not out. We're not out there because we need to do the work inside before we get out there. Am I understanding that right? And what can people look forward to in future years? Not that you've designed that yet.
I could give this a shot and grab an assist from my teammates. So there are three parts. It's within, among, and beyond. That's the order. First phase, within, is about that internal work. So it's not about anything other than you really digging deep into yourself and your own identity. Within is about your church community. So that is, I'm sorry, did I say within? I meant among. So among is among your internal community. So usually that's your congregation, your church group, doing work together. And then the final phase is beyond, where you're actually doing work out in the community. It's the work that you're connecting with other organizations and doing that work that people associate with, like the picketing and the marching and that sort of thing. Did I get that right? There's a little fuzz in there.
Yeah, I think the other point to lift up is that while we have year-long kind of sessions and programs, one's progress isn't expected to go, you did 365 days here, you did 365 days there. There's movement back and forth, and one may not be ready. And especially because among work looks at the congregation, you may be a UU of color who's the only person doing this work in your congregation. That doesn't mean that once you get to among, you have to stop. It doesn't mean that, you don't get to do work anymore and you're only allowed to focus in on yourself. We want to explore and look at where else those connections are. And remember what the weight of carrying this into your congregation or into the greater community is going to look like.
I actually have a question for
go ahead.
Jacaren and Jacaren, especially because you're getting the you're a Black woman who's getting the calls, I'm going to guess from mostly white people, that can be draining. I mean, what are the supports that the staff of color that are working on Beloved Conversations have?
So for me personally, one of the things about me is that I know in doing this work, because I'm aware that these things come up, I don't take it personally. So when people, luckily, I've not had to deal with anyone being aggressive or mean-spirited. Like, everyone has been so lovely. But if that happens, it's not about me. And so I know, knowing that makes it easier for me to be able to offer them whatever they need. But also, I have an amazing support system where I can call just about anyone and be like, listen, like, how do I deal with this? How do I answer this person with grace? And how do I offer them what I know that they need? Reverend Kirsten is amazing in that we go back and forth and we talk about these things, and we are able to kind of bounce ideas off of each other so that we can process. But that larger, what kind of support is offered. There is a chaplain that's available to us as staff members that we can seek out. I am a member of the AUUA, which is the Administrators Association. So I have my own good officers and chaplains there. So I feel like in doing this work, being prepared means making sure that you know what resources are available and utilizing them when you need them.
I was just going to ask, we have about 9 minutes left just because I like to be a good timekeeper. Why does it matter if we tackle anti-racism, anti-oppression, white supremacy, and UU culture? Why does it even matter that we look at ourselves? Why is this work even essential to our faith? And I would also ask, if folks have the breath for it, just to stack a question, how does the introduction of the eighth principle, or the idea that the eighth principle exists and calls out being active, how does that play into all of this? And go.
Did I read the eighth principle so people know? Say it again.
I said I would like that, but
Yes. Okay. The Eighth Principle Project, which has been put forth by Paula Cole-Jones along with a team of people, says, we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. So why should we do this as UUs? Karen, do you want to start? Ty, and then Kirsten?
Sure. So I think this work is important because we're all here together. We're not going away. No one's going anywhere. And because of that, it's important for us to know how to exist in this world together, and not just in a low bar, let's tolerate each other, but in a, how do we thrive together? How do we grow together in a way that leads to the liberation of all of us together? That's why this work matters, and it's important.
I think every single one of us has been complicit in white supremacy structures and culture. And whether or not we're doing it intentionally, we've all been taught to live in ways that contribute to white supremacy culture. And we can either keep doing the damage and the harm, or we can learn to stop. And when given that decision of keep being a jerk or stop, I'm going to go with stop.
Well, I want to co-sign all of that. And I would also add that Unitarian Universalism is a microcosm of the society that we're steeped in. And so as much as we want to feel like we're exceptional and we figured it out and we marched in the 60s, it's all here. It's all in here with us. And it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to change it and to end it and to create a different community. And one of the things that I think a lot about is the ways that eradicating white supremacy culture in our systems and ourselves is a faithful act. And it means that by doing that, by eliminating the pieces of Unitarian Universalism, of our congregational culture, of our ways of being together that are exclusionary and harmful and separating us from each other, allows us to become the religious community that we say that we are, which we are not yet. It's an aspirational thing, right? And I so treasure the life-saving, liberatory theology of Unitarian Universalism. And when we engage that in ways of being that are not loving and welcoming and hospitable to everyone equally, then we deny people access to that life-saving theology. And how dare we think that that is okay to do for anyone who isn't someone who is seen by white supremacy culture as having permission to access that theology. To keep others from it is just unconscionable. And so I think that this faith community has saved my life, and I know that it's saved the lives of so many other people. And I want that for everyone. And so I know that this is work that I can do with my ministry and together with my people.
And Unitarian Universalists can be impactful. Like, we may not be as big. I mean, I think our whole denomination fits in one Catholic archdiocese. So however, we're spread out and we plant seeds. And when we being Unitarian Universalists, choose an issue, we can make an impact, right? Look at marriage equality. So, and I also like to say that folks who are on the side of explicitly upholding white supremacy and oppression have limitless imagination for horror. Who would think of caging babies, right? So when people hear we're going to dismantle systems of oppression, we're going to dismantle white supremacy culture, and they're daunted, I'm like, no, we could do it. Just like there's folks imagining horror, we can imagine liberation and we can bring it about. It is only limited by our own thoughts and ideas. We can absolutely do it. We just have to put in the work.
And if I might just take a moment to talk to the viewers out there, if you are a member of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, and many of you are, we hope that you will sign up to take Beloved Conversations, whatever your racial identity, because when Aisha and Chris and I and your learning fellows and your staff talk about liberatory Unitarian Universalism, when we talk about collective liberation as Unitarian Universalists, this is what we're talking about. And this class will help you engage in the ways that we hope people will engage with the Church of the Larger Fellowship in years to come. And so Tanner will put a link in the chat to where you can go to register, but please do.
Absolutely. And I'll say it out for us. So in order to get registered, I know you're ready after hearing us talk about this program. So go ahead and get registered. You can go to meadville.edu/beloved. And from there, there's lots of information. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll see some options about registration, about pricing. We have an amazing FAQ section. So if you have some questions, look there. If you want more clarity about the structure of the program, it can also be found there as well. So registration ends again February 26th, so you still have some time. And the actual programming starts March 16th. So the first bit of it will drop on March 16th. We do have scholarships available. We do not turn anyone away for the inability to pay. So we have both half scholarships. So if you just want to pay half fee, you can do that. We have full scholarships, which will cover the whole amount. Our pricing scale it's a sliding scale. So pricing is from $250 to $350. And if you are wanting or needing a scholarship, you'll just email us or email me at belovedconversations@meadville.edu. And from there, just let me know if you need a full or half scholarship, and I will send you a coupon code so that you can register.
Thank you. And I would like to also invite folks who have the privilege to donate more so that you can help with scholarships for other people. That is a thing that can happen as well. Thank you all so, so much for joining us on this just impactful and, to me, just encouraging episode of The VUU. So, Beloved Conversations, Meadville Lombard, shout out. Thank you, Ty, Karen, Kirsten, QuianaDenae, Michael, Tanner. We'll see you all next week on The VUU. Bye all.
Yay!